Yeah.
Yes,
In
sir.
fact, you have noticed that I have taken a couple of sessions from the examples like developed by him, but my examples wasn't 100% same as him. So I
Mhm,
followed because it's a very old one, but still valid in these days too. But a few things are completely changed.
mhm.
Like HTTP logins and HTTP clients are not the same. Okay, so there are some changes, of course. Blazor has evolved, of course. So now what today we are going to do is first of all, you should know that the authentication and authorization or whatever we do is not that is something to do with Blazor only. Okay, it's a general thing. It's a general thing. So we are going to completely separate out this thing. So the server that is getting you the data will be a different one, and the clients are different one. So we are doing a 100% separation of concerns. And if you follow this loose coupling, okay, instead of strongly coupling, you can basically attain, you can actually scale up your projects very easily, right? You can really scale up your projects easily. Like the same project can be used to connect with an Angular client or a Blazor client or a mobile phone application client, right? I mean, an Android device or something. So that line of thought is what we are going to take today, right? So we are going to be creating, first of all, let me start creating. Okay, we had this project. Let me close it now. And anything else that you have, you can cross it. Okay, all right. So let me create a new project. And we'll start by creating a blank solution. So you know that when I start by blank solution, the thing is going to be getting big, right? So I'm starting with a blank solution first. So let me create it and let me name this as Blazor login with token, right? With tokens. So everything will be tokenized. Token. Everything means the after the successful login, the server. What server? Blazor server? No, the API server. The API server is going to give you a token. Now you can manifest this as a bearer token, as a JWT token. It's your wish. However you want, you can. But the main thing that I want to tell you is that they are tokens. Tokens, JWT, we call JWT has got nothing to do with security. It just kinds of uh, tells you that who you are is what you are, right? It's a kind of encrypting data within your token. But the token is lost, you are in a problem, right? So token is what is very simple thing, like you went somewhere and asked for something and you have been given a token. So that token is your identification. Now, next time you come to that same server, you have to take your token. Now, it sounds very similar to cookies. Of
Mhm.
course, cookies are tokens. The cookies are tokens in the web world, right? In the web world. Let's say that you are doing your client is not a web browser. Your client is a mobile phone application. So where cookies will be there, right? So cookies are specifically for the what? For the browser,
Web.
right? For the browser. I'll actually go through that architecture by little bit drawing stuff and all. So let me get to the paint and explain the thing. So we have a client, okay, so that's a client and that's a server, right? Now, usually in usual application, we request the page from the server and the server responses by giving you a web page. And we do a login, and after the login, server sends a cookie, and that cookie is saved in your hard disk on your client, right? And then thereafter, every time you make a request to a newer request, that cookie will be carried forward to the same server, just as a mode of authentication, just as a mode of proof that who you are. So we first of all go for a login page, and after successful login, it checks with its database and also server is having its database. Okay, and after that, it creates a cookie. The server creates a cookie, and that cookie is saved by the client. You know this. We have been always been doing this for the last, we have all been doing for like whichever technology we use, PHP, JSP, ASP or ASP.NET, even the oldest of ASP. We all use this technology. Like this is a browser, this is the browser, and we request something. Uh, First of all, the server will see that whether you hold the cookie or not. If you don't hold the cookie, you'll be redirected to the login page, right? I'm not taking too much of time here because you know them, because anybody who has gone through web concepts and all, they all know it, right? So this cookie will be first be tried to be fetched, that if you already hold the cookie or not. If you hold the cookie, then what data you have in the cookie, who you are, because the cookie will usually hold your username. And from that username, the rest of the information will be looked up in the database and will be served. So this is the way we have been doing for such a long time, but only problem is this with this particular stuff, this particular architecture is a scalability. Like let's say tomorrow you also want to be doing not only the web application, the mobile application. Now for the mobile phone, you don't expect a cookie to be saved somewhere, right? Or let's say a desktop application, okay, a desktop application. So desktop application, where is your cookie? Tell me. In a Windows application, desktop applications are, like also known as Windows application. So in Windows application, where we'll get the cookie? Cookies are very much pertinent to the browsers only, right? So cookies means browser. So the mode of authentication, cookie as a mode of authentication is truly a hallmark of browsers, right? And not for other devices like mobile devices and this like Windows client devices and all. So, but they still want to do the data communication. Like your computer is saying that high ultraviolet. So how it knows that it is high ultraviolet now? Okay, so how it knows? How it knows that if I click on it, this temperature, how it knows that you are having this 35 degrees Celsius in your place, which is what is just how is it? Okay, fine. In Telangana, right?
Yes,
so how your computer, is it having a thermometer attached? So have you connected a thermometer over to your roof?
No, sir.
And the roof is sensing? No, because this computer is connecting to the APIs and getting the data, right? So everyone is every device connects with API. So right now our world has become totally API oriented. So what we are going to do is create the server. We'll first create the API project, okay? And the API project will be everything. So API project will give you a facility to log in. API facility, after login, API will also give you a key. Okay, you can think this as API key or some kind of login key, right? Authentication key, whatever you can call it. Token, can call it anything you want. This token will be given to the client. Now it is the responsibility of the client to save the token. How it saves is all up to him, right? If he loses the token, then it is gone, right? So the token is given. So after a successful login, instead of a cookie, a generalized version of the cookie, which is the token, you can call it token, a token will be given, right? This token will be sent by the server and will be taken by the client. Now, server is very intelligent. This token will be timed out after certain time, okay? Otherwise, if you distribute this token to any of your friend or any of the other application, then the server will not even understand that this token is coming from this client or that client. So the stealing of token is another concern. This is what server cannot guarantee, right? It's very simple. It's very simple. Like let's say you have done some subscription to certain website, let's say Udemy or somewhere, like they have some cheap subscriptions. And then what you did is that you say, sir, okay, fine, I'll be giving my user ID and password to you. So let's say that is the token. Now, if I take that token, if I take that credential, I'll also be able to log into the server and see the contents there, right? So it's same thing. So if this token itself is the guarantor of the authentication. So the token is given. The token is same as is a similar kind, not same, similar kind, and similar kind with that of the with the cookie stuff. And now this token will be sent to the server every single time, and the server will identify the user and will give the correct response, right? So the only login API will create the token, it will give the token, and also the server is going to save the token into its database. Very important, right? It's going to save the token into the database. Why? Because next time when someone comes, someone means this guy only, request another page or another content, Server will first see whether this token has, whether this client is having a token or not. If the client is not having a token, then the response will be unauthorized, not be getting the response. Okay. And if the token is there, it will just then try to search whether this token also exists in its database already. And this token will be existing in the database if user has done a prior login. And if the token is existing, has the token, has this token already crossed its expiry, right? That question will also be asked, because tokens will be given a default expiry. These are all things we are going to do today, right? So token expiry, and the token expires, and we are going to do it all by manual coding. This is the best thing. There are some softwares, there are some services which does this automatically. But I always believe doing them, having the control, little control with yourself, that is manual control, always is good. So always better. So you can do things in your own way. So we are going to be creating all kind of middlewares and all beautiful thing. You will just notice. Okay. So every time the client will now send the request after the first login, it will save its token in the HTTP header. Please understand, this is the standard thing. So every time it requests, like let's say it wants to request the dashboard or some other thing, client is going to send this token in the HTTP header every time. That is the main mantra of API calls, right? So every time you are calling the API, this HTTP header, it is going to be taking this token in HTTP header. Now you can do it as a bearer token, authentication bearer token, or very normal usual HTTP token in the header. We will be doing the normal HTTP header tokens. Okay, and that will be sent to the server. The server to a specific API. Let's say to an API X, which does something. Let's say it might do like getting some dashboard data or something, some user data or something. Okay, but this API, we could have done one thing, that every time we reach up an API, the API will first try to decouple the data from the HTTP headers. Okay, now there can be 50 such APIs, 50 APIs. Now do you think in every API we have to first decouple and check the header, and after getting the header, get the corresponding user from the database, and then decide what to do with that user, right? So every time, this is a common code now, very common code. Like every time you send this token as a part of the header to any API call, let's say there are 50 API calls on the server, they all require authentication. Okay, they require authentication. They require the user to be already been authenticated using the login. So they expect the token to be sent, and from the token they have to identify the user. So if I have the token, because token internally has some information, and that information will again be plugged into the server to get who is the user corresponding to this token, right? So from the token, server will extract the user information, and from using that user only, now the data will be served according to the user need or something. Okay, so now this authentication has to be done per API. Instead of doing per API, what we have done is whenever the request strikes the server, we have created a middleware here, custom middleware, right? A custom middleware, right? Custom middleware. This middleware will first be intercepting our call, right? Intercepting, right? Anything that comes into the airspace, okay, we first intercept. So that's a radar, you can think. So the radar first intercepts the call, intercepts the request, and first identifies that, oh, you're having having header information. So let me quickly see who are you. So it questions every time who are you, and accordingly, an user corresponding to that token will be injected inside the application's context, so that every other user can just use that context. They don't have to be extracting and querying the database every time, and then querying and get the user. They'll just be getting the user's data. We don't have to be doing all kinds of database operation. No repetition of code. We absolutely avoid repetition of code. right? Only thing that a secure API has to do is to look up for the user and say what to do with that user. If that user, if he thinks that the user is not present, just show an unauthorized response to the client. If that sounds all complicated, no worries. We are now going to be taking this step by step, right? But hopefully you got some broad idea.
Yes, sir.
Great. Okay. So you understood that this is a kind of two project stuff, one an API project. So we're now going to be getting into the API project. So this is a blank solution having nothing at all. And the first project that we're going to do is we are going to be getting into the Blazor login API. Let me right click on this and click add new project. We're creating an ASP.NET Core API project. Click next. I'll plug it in here. Okay, so Blazor login API and click next. Okay, so Open API support and everything. We are not using Open API though. We are using controller-based APIs and click next. That creates a project. Okay. Now I'm going to be doing the first few things. First of all, I'm going to be having our dependency setup. So I already have that in my computer. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to be double clicking on it because typing them is a very cumbersome stuff. So I have been referencing the Open API. Okay, that's important. And then we already have this Open API, so I'm going to be deleting this. So it's fine. So we have this Open API. We have integrated Scalar, as I've told you already. Scalar is very nice. Instead of swashbuckle and that the swagger stuff, Microsoft now recommends Scalar. So that's fine. And have integrated with the ASP.NET Core Entity Framework. So Entity Framework Core, SQL Server, and tools are the tools that you want to include. All right, so by this time, our dependencies are all set up. You can check this in the packages, all set up, right? All good. Now, what a few things. First thing is you have to be going into program.cs and do certain things here, okay? And that is app.map scalar API reference. You can just do this and it is fine. You don't have to do anything. The last time you saw that we have integrated the color and all, but if you don't do that, it will come in black color. That is fine. You're not fascinated by the other colors like blue colors for now. So we have set up that just sets up the scalar very easily. And other thing that we should do is, probably we have to be getting into properties, the launch setting stuff, and the browser. We want to launch the browser, so this should be true. And this should be the launch URL, the launch browser, the launch URL is scalar, right? Because you want the scalar UI to come up to test our APIs if anything. If you have to test our APIs, the same thing I'm going to have it for the HTTP if need be. So the APIs are always set up in two ways: one for the HTTP, one for the HTTPS. In both the schemes, we have to be integrating with our browser, and also would like to start it with the scalar as the UI. So if I run it right now, this is what we will see. And now, right? So that's our scalar. We just have the weather forecast. Click on it, test request. It does, right? Gets you the default data and all. Right? So I hope that you have understood so far.
Yes, sir.
This is a very simple thing. We have already done it many times before. Okay. So now we have already set up many things. Now we have to be setting up the connection string. We will be doing a step by step the connection string. So for the connection string, let me copy and paste from my computer. Okay. Yes, there we go. I've already copied and we got it pasted here, right? So we have the server pointing to the SQL Express. Now, this time the database name is Blazor Logging DB. So right now we just have this Blazor DB, employee DB, and this database. So soon we are going to be having our database integrated here using the code first model. And yes, and for that we also need to be adding the DB context, which is not even created now, into our program.cs. So we are going to be doing them very soon, and that has to be done right here. Okay, right after the controllers. Yeah, I like to do it all after the controller part. Okay. Here we have to be doing that, but we have to be creating the app DB context, and for that we'll be creating some folders. The first folder is, okay, now have a look. We'll be creating two folders, models and data folders. So let me create the models folder first. Add folder, models folder. Let me create another folder, the data folder. Okay, so now we have got the models and the data folder. Now in the models folder, we like to have our simple model. So the first thing is we want to be having a user class. Okay, so let me add a user model. Okay, and we need to be having the we need to be having the properties for the users. There you go. So username and password. Okay, the password, we should not be getting password directly here. This is just for the demo purpose. We actually create hash of it. Okay, hash of the password, and also hash is encrypted by random salts, right? So we use hashing mechanism, right? So but for now, for this demo purpose, demonstration is always, see, for any demonstration you keep things a little simpler just to make you understand the stuff. Okay, so ID, username, and password. So we have the password, but real world, we don't save password anywhere in the database. So if you ask Google that, okay, I have lost my password, can you please tell my password? Google will never be able to tell you your password. Google will tell you, okay, we can help you to change your password, but it cannot tell your password, because there is something that will prevent doing that. Because what actually Google stores is your hash of your password. You can think some kind of encryption is not exactly encryption, an encryption which cannot be decrypted. Hash is such a kind of encryption which cannot be decrypted back to the original one, right? So hashing means that it's a great deal of thing. Okay, so but for now we are just keeping things simple: ID, name, and password. So this will be our user. ID is the internal ID maintained, and username will be something unique, and password is, of course, the password of the user. Now, one important thing that we also like to, store the authentication token in our database. Whenever someone logs in, we like to save his token. Like, it's very simple. Server has created a token and has given to you. The server must also store that token, right? The server should store that token. Now, APIs are stateless. APIs don't store anything. So APIs will store that token in the SQL Server only, right? So APIs will store the token. So anybody who gets connected, his information will be stored in the server for a while in the SQL Server. And meanwhile, those tokens in the SQL Server are also dropped, are also deleted. And the deletion code, the deletion logic is what I have not done, but it can really be done very easily. Okay, so we can set its expiry. Of course, we check its expiry, but the actual deletion of record from the database can be done manually by some kind of API or some kind of code, some kind of background services. We can have some running background services which can check for the like expired tokens, and we can really delete them after a while, right? So let me create another class which is like auth token. Here the things picks up momentum now. So what are the things of this auth token? Okay, we are going to be having some of the fields. Great to see now. Couple of properties going to be copied and pasted now. Here we go. First of all, there is a ID. Every record in entity framework must be having an ID. If for any reason, if you have not put an ID for a table, for a for a table or for a class, that cannot be saved in by entity framework code generation tools. So ID is very important thing. A primary key is very important. And then we have a GUID. Yes, a GUID will be translated into database having a very specific database type known as unique identifier. This will be translated to unique identifier. Yes, unique identifier. Integer, for C# integer database, we have integer. For C# data, the date time in database, we have got date time or date and other stuff also. This is, of course, a navigational property. Like it is saying that if this is the ID, then this is the user ID, then what will be my user? So what navigation property does is it checks that for any property in this class matches with a property in here. It automatically maps, right? So since this user is already having user ID, okay, it has ID, okay, no problem. It has ID. So it automatically maps with the user ID. That is what it does. And it does automatically since this is user and ID and we already have user ID, this matches. Now this is a brilliant way of matching by the code generation tools, right? This doesn't match with this ID. Please note, this will match with user because the class name is user and it has got an ID here, ID. So this will take it here that we have an user ID. So this will automatically match and the navigational properties will be set automatically by the navigational systems, right? So this is the navigational property. You can call it as a navigational property, okay? Navigational property, right? If a class is associated with multiple records, one to many records, then we have list coming here, list. That is for every record, we have got multiple records in another table. Then a list will come up. But for one authentication token, you don't have multiple users, right? One authentication, you don't have multiple users. For one authentication token, you have an user ID that is exactly mapped with only one and one row in the user. So we don't write I enumerable or I collection of things, right? If you see I collection of something, that is also navigation property. But in that case, that particular table is related in a foreign key relationship having many records, right? But we don't have many here. You need to identify. This is also, of course, foreign key, but not having one-to-one relationship. Okay. All right. So we have these two things. Great. So this will be saved in the database, and we'll be having expiry. However, one user object is associated with multiple auth key in future. So that means, and that will be deleted, of course, like one user object was signed in yesterday with some auth key, but it has already expired. So this time has expired. Maybe we want to keep just 1 hour or 2 hours of expiry. And then again, yesterday evening, he has already another signed in. So another authentication key was just given to him. It also expired. So if you all want to really keep track of user sessions, you can also keep those authentication keys and auth keys saved in the server, right? However, if your main aim is just to serve this authentication keys per request and delete them, so you can create some background services which looks out for the database and checks for expired tokens and it deletes them, right? So I'm keeping just going like some time in all these concepts, right? I can copy and paste. I already have that code, right? But I don't want to do that. So I developed this example for you. Okay. So the next thing is, well, the next thing will be to have what? To have the database context, right? So let me create our database context and keep it within the data folder. We'll also apply migration. So we are going to be inheriting from DB context. doing that gets with the entity framework thing over here. And now here we want to be having quite a few things. So we want to be having our these two things. Okay. First of all, this is a constructor which checks in the options from the program.cs. We have not done program.cs integrated into here. We will be doing that soon. We have got two tables, users and auth token, right? And we also like to have some migration data. And for that, we have to be configuring the on model creating. This is my on model creating, right? So on model creating, just be having two guys, Alice and Bob. Okay, Alice, just remember Alice in small, password is pass123, and Bob, secret 456, right? So these are the two information you're going to be getting into the database. All good, just that in the program.cs, we need to be integrating our, our services. And for that, let me get it here. Okay, so this is all. I think we have done it many million times, many million times. Yeah. So app context. One of the students said that, okay, isn't that this can be integrated very easily? I mean, just in a click, one click, the Visual Studio will give me all of them, because this kind of things are repeating. And why don't Visual Studio give it in the beginning itself? Because if there's so much repeating, because Visual Studio never expects you to do it never thinks that you'll always be doing a web application which will be database oriented, right? So he always wants to keep things simple to the list expectations. Okay, and then we can incrementally do things, go up high and high as we need them. Of course, Microsoft expects us to use some of the important namespaces, so it has kept the first 7 namespaces. Then you have added a few more. Okay, so these are the namespaces that we use it. Some of the namespaces have been included automatically in global using g.cs. Okay. All right, so we're all good now. Let me build to check if everything is fine. And then we are going to be applying the migration commands, right? So we are going to be getting into the package manager console. If you don't see it, you can always search it from here. Yeah, the best thing is that you can search package manager console. You can get it, package PSC hit enter, it will get you there, right? So yep. And here I'm going to be creating our scripts, the migration and scripts. A folder with the name migration will be created, auto created by this stuff. Okay, so that will contain the migration scripts. So we'll write add migration. Yep, initial create. Okay, by now you are a pro. And let me hit enter. I've already hit enter. Did I? I think I did not. Let me hit enter. Am I hitting enter or something? Oh, what is happening? Can you hit enter, please? I don't know why enter. I'm not able to hit enter. Please hit enter.
It's not getting entered.
How funny. How funny. Blazor login API. Wait a second. That's fine. It's not hitting enter. Oh, started. It was sleeping, man. And now your computer is super fast. It creates immediately. That usually takes some 5 seconds of time. So it did very fast, right? And now that we want to apply the migration by writing update database. Hitting enter, started. Finished, done. So it's done, right? So now you can really check, you can refresh, and you can check that Blazor login DB has been created with 2 tables, auth and token. So the migration history also. And the user, we have got 2 users, Alice and Bob, with these passwords, right? And the migration history was added. Have a look. With only the initial migration, created with the product version 9.0.5, essentially the .NET Core version. Okay, so we are in the base point now. So our API is ready, steady. Okay, so now we are about to create our Blazor application. So Blazor client application is what we're now going to do. Okay, quite a few things still need to be done. Wait a second. Oh, we're not done. I'm sorry. How can I say I'm done? Just that the we're not even done, so what we have done so far is just created our database, integrated it. We haven't created the API so far, right? So now that we need to be creating our API, which is what we have to be doing right now. So what API? So we are going to be creating the authentication. You want to see if the user is authenticated or not. For that, we need to be creating, I'll be creating two APIs. One API will be used for the authentication and authorization and this kind of services. Another API will be using that key to authenticate or authorize the user. The first API will be used for login to give the user the proper key. So, yep, so two APIs. The first API will be the authorization controller. So let me right click on this controller, right click, click add, click this controller, go for this API, add, type auth controller not added. Now, this controller will be having all the necessary things to, to actually do the check that whether user is fine or not. You can clearly see that it is requesting. It is, so that's the constructor, and this is the constructor. This constructor is requesting the appdb context. Okay, so this is the API which is making use of that context, and it is storing it into the context parameter, which is read only. We have also done it many times by now, and we have a login which is guaranteed to be post, and it is getting the data from the user object. We also want this login API is guaranteeing that the data is not accidentally passed in the query string. So it is checking that you need to be getting the data from body itself. So that means whoever is the client, it doesn't say who is the client, whoever is the client. It can be a Blazor, it can be it can be coming from any sources anywhere. It must pass its data in the body and not in the URL. That is what from body tells us. Okay, it's a kind of a requirement by the API, and then it does a search. You can see it says that okay, we want to be searching the users. It would like to see if the user is having this username and the password from the database. Okay, so after that, if the user is not found, we are returning an unauthorized response. If the user is found, we're now creating a grid. Okay, so how do you create grid? This grid class is made for that, to create a grid, and the grid is created, a token is created. You're also setting up the token's expiry for 30 minutes. Okay, we are using UTC now, which is universal coordinated time, which is a standard time, which is a common time. You can, if you don't use UTC, if you just use now, you're actually using the current time of your current server computer. So if the server is in India, so that means it will be taking the Indian time. However, if you write UTC now, it's a general time, universal coordinate time, somewhere in the green. It's kind of it's a Greenwich Mean Time, basically. It's a universal coordinate time. It's a common agreed time, UTC now. So that time is being created here. It has been created, okay, as an expiry, and then we want to set this expiry to this expiry. Token is this, and this is the user ID. Great. So we are creating these. We are cooking up this data, token to token, user ID to user dot ID. Remember this thing. You need to remember now, and expiry to expiry. We are cooking up this data, creating this data, and creating this auth token, storing it into the auth token variable. And then we are posting this data to the database. We are saying the context.auth token.add. And after that, we are going for a save changes. I think it actually does the commit in the database. You know that. You know these things, right? So we have saved it into the database. So what we have done, if the user is not authorized, we are straight away sending an unauthorized HTTP response back to the server. If user is fine, then we are about to create a token. Token is created very easily by calling the GUID. And GUIDs are almost guaranteed to be unique. GUIDs are such a big number, okay? Such a big number. I mean, not number exactly, alphanumeric number. They are guaranteed to be unique. All right, they're guaranteed to be unique. And then we are setting up an expiry that how long from now this token should survive. And we are then creating a token object, which is auth token, saving this token, which is token. Token is the GUID, right? You know that it has a token. Token is nothing but the token itself. Now we could have saved it in a string format, but since SQL Server automatically understands GUID as globally unique identifier. Oh, let me show you that. Okay, that how SQL Server created that. So if I expand this user, there's nothing special. You'll find user ID as integer, username as nworker, password as nworker. Okay, and by default, SQL Server migration script makes it max, so you'll see max. But for the token part, you'll find ID as integer, token as unique identifier. This is what I said, right? Unique identifier, which is not null. Okay, and user ID is FK, foreign key. See how nicely it understood. User ID is foreign key, and expiry is date time, not null. Great, right? So that information is being created here. A token is GUID. So GUID in database will map to unique identifier in the SQL Server. And then because unique identifiers are being used so much these days, and then we are adding it, saving it, done. So a login process, I think you have clearly understood how the login API does this job, right? That is how a login API does this job. It first loads the data from the user. So that means in the user class, you know that this information will be there, that user ID and password. It doesn't look for the ID part, just looks for the ID and password. Okay, just the ID and the password. This is what it sees, ID and password. So this is what you can think as a DTO object also. This is actually a domain object, but used as a DTO object. So this is both a domain and a DTO at the same time. You can see this is a model. So this is a domain object. This connects because this has a mention in the AppDB context. So anything that has a mention there is a domain classes, right? The classes which connects with the database. In short, you can call them domain classes. Okay, but DTO classes are those specifically which bring data in and out from the APIs, right? So in this case, this API is using this user, which also being used as a DTO objects, DTO, data transfer objects. Okay, I keep on telling them so that you don't forget, right? So that is what it is. Add minutes, 30 minutes, we're all good. Now we have to be creating a very important thing, and that is the middleware. Yes, this is something important. I know it. So we need to be creating a middleware component. A middleware, you'll see all the advanced codes they create middlewares. Let me right click, add. Most of the class time today will go in creating the API itself, middleware. In the middleware, okay, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be creating a token middleware. So all this time we have been calling middlewares like app.use that, app.use this, right? We have been using middlewares, we have been calling, right? Authorization middleware, this middleware. But now we are going to be creating a middleware and calling it here, integrating it here, all right? So I'm showing you how we do that and how we integrate it here. Let me right click on this middleware, click add. Middlewares are nothing but classes, okay? I name it as token middleware. That is my token middleware class. Okay. Now this is the middleware, and I need to be having some code into it. So what else? Expect a big blob of code to be right now copied and pasted. There we go. Okay, like a blast. And we have to including the entity framework core. Quite sure. Yep. Now look at this. It's a great thing to see. This middleware first, okay, it has a request. Every middleware that you create in .NET Core will be having the similar structure. It will definitely have a constructor getting the current request delegate. Okay, it's is the sorry the next request delegate. So it will save this. So who is next in your series? So it is your responsibility to call the next middleware. If you don't call the next middleware, then the middleware is short circuited. Okay.
Mhm.
So we need to be saving our next middleware. This is the first thing we should save. Okay. So, and every middleware is having this responsibility to do its job and transfer the command to the next middleware, to my next person, right? It's like a piece of paper. There are a lot of students sitting in a class. A teacher has given the first paper to the first student. He wrote his name and roll number and something and passed that paper to the next student. Okay. The kind of this. The next student will be writing his name and roll number there, maybe doing some project work or something. A teacher has a one blank sheet of paper and has given to the first student. All the students are sitting in the class. The first student fills his information and passes to his friend that paper. The next student will fill his name and roll number and some information that he is doing in his next upcoming project, and will pass the paper to the next student. So basically, in the same paper, the same paper, all the students are writing, right? So this kind of thing, it wants to save the next middleware just here. And the actual middleware execution happens here, the invoke. And the middleware always gets to think, I'm sorry, the middleware, this invoke function, I'm sorry, middleware doesn't get thing. We have to be injecting here, this HTTP context and the AppDB context. You can inject, okay?
Mhm.
This is an injection. So async task, we are injecting HTTP context and AppDB context. So we can always inject, right? So this invoke, we have written it there, right? So uh, we have this invoke function and have these two things wanting. So you mostly see these things wanted in the constructor, but yes, you can also want it in here, AppDB context, right? See, we haven't injected AppDB context here, but we can also inject AppDB context here too, right? Job of this middleware is to check the request has a valid token. If so, attach the user to the context. Very important thing. I talked about I talked about this in the last session, that the singleton and what else we have? Tell me. One singleton. We can add
Scoped.
a, right. Tell me.
Yes, sir. Scoped.
Scoped, right? Exactly. So we are
Branch.
going to be adding exactly. We are adding this as a scoped, because anything that we add in the context gets added in the scope of the application, right? So what we are doing is that first of all, we are checking the header. We're sniffing the header. We are sniffing the header of this x-axis token. X-axis token. We're sniffing it out. And if it is present, we are taking into the token value. And immediately we are trying to parse it into a token which is GUID, because our tokens are not used as a string but as a GUID class itself, which is a great thing. And so first of all, we try to get it into token, which is a string value. Okay, so this is nothing but a string value. And then we are going to be getting this string values, which is string basically, primitive string values, and getting it into the token object. So all we have done is a conversion into the token. And then we are requesting this DB. Hey, Mr. DB, I am calling you. I just want to see if there is a user with this. Well, I mean, so of course, so what this does, this includes the navigational property. So we first do this db.tokens and also include the user object corresponding to that. And here is the real query. We are saying this auth token, can you please spot a token with this GUID and also make sure that expiry is more than the current time. So that means it has not expired. Okay. So if I tell you that who are the guys whose expiry is more than current date, right? So if I say that who are the people on earth whose what to say, whose age is more than the current date. So that means all the living people, all the
Yes, sir.
living people, right?
Yes,
All
sir.
the living people. So that is what it says, right? Okay. So who's right? So that means that the t dot expiry is more than dt dot utc. So that means who are living tokens now, right? So these are all living tokens. So, and we want to be getting the specific token because we have done T token equal to token. So this token is the GUID in the database, and this is the token that we have supplied. We just got it here. We got the auth token, and we have to make sure that the token is not null. Of course, if token is not null, that is token is really present, really present. This auth token in this way, we really got it. Maybe that, so maybe that we got a token from the header, but the token wasn't found here. Token is there in the header section. The user has given this token. See, the user has really given this token. But the problem is that in the header part, the token is present. What is the name of that header? X access token. This is the name of the header. We can write anything, ABC. It's up to you, right? We can write anything, ABC, XYZ, bearer token, bearer, anything you can write. But usually we call it X access token. If this guy is present, we query this database system that if that token, we want to get the token with the same token value and the expiry. If we now get this token, if you don't get this token, right, then nothing is done. If you get this token, then we simply extract the user object from the token, because you know that every token is having a user object. This user object we got because we included this guy. Okay. And that will be saved in the context, right? Inside the context. Yes. Now inside the context of the application, this will remain. Right. So that means whoever comes to the server will first say, please stop. Our radar has stopped you. We want to sniff you. We want to see if we have got the X access token. If X access token is there, we want to save it in this context.items.user. Right? Brilliant. But now we need to be registering this token. Where do you register the token? Right inside the program.cs file, right? And it is very important to understand that where we need to be registering this token. You should register the token before the authorization and map controllers. So before we do this, and after this HTTP redirection setup. So you should be setting up this. Use middleware, token middleware. This is how we have created and registered our middleware. Right. Now, every time a request will come, this middleware is sure to be hooked on. Right. This middleware just checks and passes. Its job is not to stop you. No middleware's job is to stop you. Middlewares are just for scan and leave. Scan and leave. So scan, check. If you have the token, just paste it in the context, right? And then go to the next, just call the next middleware. Okay, this is like calling the next middleware. This is where you call the next middleware. Call the next middleware in the pipeline. Okay, call the next middleware in the pipeline. Great. Okay, fine. So now that we have set up the middleware, we have set up in the program.cs, our login system is completely ready. But where are my secured APIs? I did not create the secure API. All we have done is we have created the middleware. And we also have the authorization control, which is the login API. But now, of course, there should be some API at least, to check this, to make this demo. As a part of the demo, I'm just going to be creating another API, which is the user controller. All right. This guy is going to be doing those kind of authorization checks. Okay. Let me create another controller. This API guy. You can just have anything. Okay, let me create it empty first, right? Name it this user controller, and I'm going to be replacing it with my big blob of code. There we go. All right. So what is this all about? There are two function called. One is me. Me means API user me. Me means get my information. API user me. Me means my profile. You want to greet me. This is what I'm using. I have this code, but I have not used this. Okay, you can use this. I mean, the dashboard has not been done. I've only done this. That's fine. I mean, you can use any one of them, right? Just look at this. What it does. This doesn't check that who you are, what you are, whether to extract the data from the header, because before even you touch this, you could even touch this. Okay, right? Before it could even touch this, the radar system, this radar system, this token middleware will first catch up every time for any API call, this will catch up. This will save the user information in the context. All this guy has to do every time you need to extract this information. That is the only repeating code. You see, repeating here, repeating here. If you don't want to repeat them either, you can do some kind of other code also. You can have some like action filters. We can do that, right? But I think this code is just fine. We can just first go and inspect this HTTP context, check this, and if it is found, we check it in the user. Only repeating code is that, okay, if this is null, then unauthorized user, right? And if it is not null, then we can check other things. So we can just write return. This part is only thing that can again be automated by using some kind of authorization filters also, right? We can go with that part too later. But understand that this is just fine. I mean, we can just do that. Only thing is that we have to repeat these things, okay? Instead of repeating the whole code, otherwise we have to repeat all these big thing every time. Every time we have to write this thing. Just please understand. Every time if you have not written that middleware, fine, don't write that middleware. Then every API that is secure, you need to write this. You need to write this, right? Context, request, you need to somehow get the context injected. Every time you need to write this. And for all of them, for this guy, right? For this guy, this will be very bulky. So instead of going this way, we wanted to delete those stuff, right? And we wanted to be having this separated out in the middleware. Middleware will do these things. The middleware will be called once per API before the APIs are called. Middlewares are exactly like that, right? Why it will be called before every API? Because look at their placement, brothers. This has been placed before the authorization and the app map controller. This is where all the API controllers get added. So API, all your APIs are getting called because of this map controllers. If map controller was not added, then none of your API will be called ever. Okay, none of your API will be called. It will only reach up to this middleware and nothing else will happen. Right. So anyway, so my way of teaching. I repeat things many times, and you finally get to understand. If you have failed to understand at one point, don't worry. Again, I will repeat at some other point. You will eventually understand. You are there with my class for a time. You know the way of my teaching, right? Yes. Yeah. So now what I have told you is, so this is what we want to now be using in Get Profile. So after doing all these things, we are now going to be getting into the Blazor client. So this is the Blazor API. And the next thing is that we're now finally getting into the Blazor client project. So let me create a Blazor client project, which could have been done as an WASM project, absolutely, but we are creating it as a server project. That's fine. All right, so this is Blazor web app 9 and server global. Okay, everything fine in place. Create this. So we would like to run both of them, not just one, both of them. So right click on this project, coming to the properties, we want to set it as startup multiple projects, and then make sure that this API project starts first. So I would like to change it to start, and then this to start, and this is good. So API should start first and then this. If you do not have this, you can really do this sequencing to get it up and down, right? The API will be starting first and then this line. So I'll apply and okay, that now the project is multiple startup. We want the API project to start first and then our Blazor client to start. So what we want to do in the Blazor client, of course, the Blazor client must have login. right? We must have a login. So we are going to be creating a login stuff here. So quite a few things now coming up. I'm quickly going to copy and paste now. I've already done much of the time. So let me right click on this, click add, click new Blazor component, and then write it as login. That creates the login.razor. The login.razor will be like this. Okay, simple enough. So the page is login. We have injected HTTP client and JS runtime. Okay, so are the two things that we have injected. HTTP client and Blazor runtime. There is nothing. Only thing that we need to be injecting, of course, because we are injecting the HTTP client. We need to make sure that we add it. We add it rightfully in our program.cs. This is what we must definitely add, right? Yes. For the navigation services and all, we never need to add. So we have this HTTP service injected and this IJS runtime injected. We don't have to be adding this into this program.cs. It already has been added by some of these like services already. We just need to be adding the HTTP client, which I just did it here, right? You can see I did that here, right? So anytime you want to be accessing this HTTP client, make sure that you definitely add this HTTP, add HTTP client. All good. Now check out the simplicity of this. We just have got this user ID and password, okay, and this login button on click. So this is login, asynchronous login. We are making it asynchronous because we are connecting to an API, and API might take some time connect. So we are creating a login request. You can see this login request is a class we have created in one line. See, this is the login request class. This class is again what kind of class? A DTO class, bro. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any class that is used to get data and to and from. The main purpose of this to just get data and to and fro. I could have really created this in another folder here. I could have created a DTO and then plugged it here. But the sake of simplicity, we have just done it here. Okay, that's a class, and this is another class. Login request, login response. So they are just classes. Okay, so basically they are inner classes. I can separate out just for your simplicity. So that's a class, and this is another class. I can promise you it's an inner class. Inner class because this entire thing itself is a class. Login is itself a class. Now within the login, we have got these two classes. These are plain simple DTOs for sure. So for the login part, we are saving username and password from our variables, which are these variables, username and password. And we are constructing the login message, and we are calling our API, dialed it already. That HTTP. HTTP is this HTTP, which is we have injected, okay? HTTP. Never think this as a class. I don't like the idea of making them in capital. So let me make it in small. And okay, I made it in small, and this should be small. Okay, HTTP. So HTTP dot post user as async. See, we are using the post, right? And this is the request body. If you remember that our login system was expecting that. Our login system, our auth login was expecting this guy, this from body, right? Yes. So from body was this, and now you can see that this we have extracted this guy into this request object, and then we have plugged this in as a from body, and you are calling this. Now this is my code, so definitely this port number isn't same as yours. So I quickly have to go into your code and see that what was the API's the API's port number, which is in this case is 5293, right? I'm sorry, this guy 7182, because we are using the HTTPS version of it, which is 7182, right? So this has to be 7182. All good. So this is 7182 getting called. So we are calling this login guy. It will be giving me a response. Okay, so that response, if it is successful, then we are trying to read the response. See if the login was successful, then we are trying to extract that. So this is where we are doing a conversion. So this is deserialization stage. We want to convert this, we want to be getting this result. Okay, we already got this response here. We want to say that, okay, response dot content dot read from the response. We got this response as a result. And then the main interesting part of the response is nothing but the login response. This login response is nothing. It is giving you the either what is the key, is that authentication token. That authentication token is further saved as a persistent, as a local storage in your disk. Yes, we are using local storage, but that has to be done by a JavaScript that Blazor cannot do. So for that, we are taking help of the JS runtime, right? We are saying JS runtime dot invoke void async, and then we are saying that this is the function we need to call. Okay, and we are calling it access token. That what you are saving in the client is known as access token, and the access token is what we have received. So result dot access token, this is the string, that is that quit part which has been saved now. And after that, we are saying that login successful. We are changing this property, which will just say login successful. But we are not redirecting anywhere. We are just saying login successful. That's fine. We can redirect anytime. We can redirect by using a redirect here again. Okay, redirect navigation dot navigate to. But we are just making things simple. We are just making login successful or login failed. I think this part should be clear that what you have done. Called up the API services, got the result, access the access token, whatever was that access token, the GUID is a long characters, it's a long, like many characters, and that character is a unique identifier. And this unique identifier has by now has already been saved in the database. Okay, the login API has already saved it. It has done its job. Now it is your job to save it. How you save it is your job. So we have saved it in the local storage. So login async is now successful. Absolutely amazing. So login is now done. The last thing is to do the profile. So I'm not going for the dashboard. You can do the same way. So the profile. So we're now going into the profile, and let me create the profile here in the pages add. So this profile is the secured. I mean, this profile is the page which is going to access the secured API. See here, pages are not secured. What pages access are secured? Please understand. Pages are anything. Okay, fine. But what pages actually access, the data is secured, right? So we are going to be creating this component now. So this is going to be the profile, and this profile will contain some bits of code. So expect me to dump some code. And this is the last thing. Okay, paste it here. Look at this. Again, this is profile wanting to inject HTTPS. Okay, I like to name it in small HTTPS. And the JS runtime is fine. IJS runtime. We're checking if this profile is not equal to null. What profile? This profile object. This will be obtained. When this will be obtained? On after render async. Now, this is the reason why I've done it. All through we have done on async, on initialize async. First time I did after render async, because I got a lot of errors while doing it on initial async. Because on initialize async, you cannot call JavaScript. Okay, JavaScript says that once after everything is finalized, the result has rendered, everything is rendered, then only you can call JavaScript code. Before that, you don't call. Right? In short, this is all I can tell you. So I tried it like this, like override, okay, on initialize async, right? I plugged in every code here, right, initially, but that will cause an exception. It says that you cannot invoke this, you cannot do any JavaScript stuff until and unless the rendering is complete, right? So you have a profile, which is profile response, okay? And the profile response is nothing but a class. You can again see that is a class. It has got this ID and the username. That's all it has. Okay. This is the DTO object. Okay. and initial is false. Okay, we have kept this variable initialize false. So the first render first, and it also gets this value first render by the runtime, by the .NET runtime, that whether it is being called for the first time or not. Yeah, we want to say if it is being called for the first time, and also never initialized. So initialize is false. We want to set up initialize to true. Okay, that is, we don't want to keep calling this unnecessarily, and we want to be accessing our token. See, we are using get item here. Local storage.get item, access the token into the token variable. See, the token is blank. If the token is blank, outright we say please log in, and nothing to be done. And we have to be manually say state has changed. Yes, because what I have found is that the state of change has not to be, I mean, may not be called, I mean, has not to be called if I'm using the normal functions. But after, I mean, inside this all on after render async, you need to be calling state has changed. I know there's a bit of sluggishness because, you know, in Blazor, the very moment we change a variable, automatically these changes are picked up, right? The changes are picked up. But here changes will not be picked up automatically. So we have to be calling state has changed, right? So manually, right? The state has changed. So that need to be called. All right, that is how we do. We call it state has changed so that we are requesting the Blazor clients that I see we have some variables changing. So kindly update your UI based on the variables what you have. So this status change was called and returned. And if it was not, then we'd like to, you know, call the real API. This is the API, which again, I think this is not 7240. This is what it is. 7182. 7182, calling this API and then trying to read this access token. Okay, we are reading this access token. We are not reading. We are writing this access token to the server. So this is very important. The same access token that was saved in the login into the persistent media, where not as a cookie, as a persistent storage. You might know this, that every client, every computer can save large volumes of data as persistent storage. If you're not aware of that, please go through a little code where you can use local storage dot get item as set item. This is a JavaScript code where you can save data in your local storage for a good amount of time. Okay, this is not exactly the cookie, but something like a cookie, but it don't have an expiry. The best part is that this don't have an expiry, right? Cookies do have expiry, but they don't have expiry. They can be saved for a long time and any period of time, right? So great. All right. So this access token and this await. Now we are awaiting. We are now connecting to the API. We are awaiting for the response. Response comes. If it is success, you say great, successful. And then we are deserializing the response in the profile response, getting it into the profile object. And if it is not, we failed it. Whatever we have done, either populated the profile object, okay, or we have saved it into the message. We want to have a state change call. Refresh UI after async call, right? This is very important. And then the UI gets modified, right? So that was it. Basically, I think that you got some nice idea for how we can do this. Let me check if anything else that I have left out or not done. Okay, let me quickly check it. That's fine. Yeah, no problem. So let me run this. What I have not done is that I have not set up the login link and all. Okay, that we will do it manually. Okay, let me allow. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to write, you know, this profile. I still don't have any login. Hitting enter will just get me here. Please log in first. I could have done this link here. I've already taught it in the last session. Yes, now let me go to this login. Login. Look at this, brother. As I'm clicking this login, as I hit enter now, a persistent cookie will be saved for sure. I'm not still hitting it. Wait a second. Let me come to this login razor. And just before it, this is saved, I'm just going to be having this breakpoint here. Okay, just would like to show you that this will really save. So I'm just going to hit enter now here. Of course, first of it enter. It comes here. Now we have got those database stuff. If you remember in the database, you have got Alice123 as a username, right? Alice123, Alice.
Secret for.
Yeah, Alice password is pass123. Yeah. So let me use Alice123. Let me type Alice and then pass 123 and click login. Tuck, 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 finish. By this time, it has come here. If you inspect the result, you'll see this access token was generated by server and has been posted to you. Let's go and check if this user has already been saved in the database or not by now. So if I come to the database, if I refresh this, okay, I don't have to refresh this. I just have to, select 100,000 rows. You can really see that 6, 8, that there's something has been saved here. See the same thing. They are just in capital, don't worry. Okay. This has been saved here. It has been set to an expiry, which is half an hour later than this time. You can go and check your computer's time now. It's 2:40 and it is somewhere in the 3 something you can see, right? But this is in the UTC time. You will find this time back, but this is UTC time, Universal Coordinate Time, which is the Greenwich Mean Time, about 5.5 hours back then our time, right? So this is Greenwich Mean Time. And this is the token 6C and something ending with 7B, the same thing, and is rejoining the server. Give it some time. It will automatically do this stuff. Okay. And you can see this result is exactly the same, right? 7B, right? Let me continue. And the login is successful. I actually took some time. That is why I did not say probably. Let me actually unlock this. Okay. And do this one more time. This will save another cookie for sure. So if I click login, login successful. By this time, if I really come and refresh this, is it two things saved. So now you are having 2 logins, right?
Yes, sir.
2 login, but it will just try to find the login with this token. Now, but currently the token has been replaced. The current client, the client will only see this token, not this token. So this token is actually just redundant, right? Because you already have the same user logged in, and this is more recent. So this token should be deleted. This course we have not done. Now after that we have done it, and let me go for the profile. Profile. Hit enter, and that's fine. It is showing a profile. Earlier time it was not showing. It is saying 1 Alice. Brilliant. With no error, nothing. We have set up the full authentication system, right? Using token validation. You can use the same thing. You have found that we took more time in developing the API, right? In the Blazor part, of course, Blazor part is important. What we did in the Blazor part is we use this technique, and that is we used to read it from the persistent storage, right? So we use the persistent storage to read and write to. So every time we are sending data, we are reading from the persistent storage, and the login part is writing to the persistent storage. So the API key or the access token is maintained by what kind of thing? Now, by the local storage, which is a kind of a persistent storage in the which is already a functionality of JavaScript for a long time, right? Now, if you are using a mobile application, you can use some other kind of storage. This is up to you how you store your data, right? It's all onto you. Like you have locked your home. Now, how you'll store your key, it's all up to you. Whether you want to store your key in your bag, or whether under your shoes, or inside your bag. So wherever you want to store the key, it's up to you. So after the locking has been done, there is a key. So key is with you. Now how you will safeguard your key, where you want to protect your key, is all up to you, right? That security server cannot guarantee. So if anybody gets that key, if I get your key, I can get into your home, right? Very simple thing, right? So that's the point. Okay. So saving the key is very important, vital. So what precaution server does is that it invalidates the key after some time. If there is no request coming from that key after a while, so it invalidates the key, right? So you can delete. You can just say, okay, my key is gone. So you don't just want to delete that access token from the server. Instantly, all the clients who are connected will be getting deactivated, right? That is how happens in a Facebook and all. So if you say global sign out, how it happens? What is global sign out? Global sign out means all the devices are using the same access token, right? Same, whether it's your phone or your browser. You may have another phone, an iPhone, an Android phone, and like a Windows computer, a Mac machine. They are using the same access token. The very moment you go to a device and say, I want to have a global sign out, so the access token is just invalidated, right? And thereby all the clients will lose connectivity. So these kind of things are done routinely by the software systems, right?
Yes, sir.
Raju, so that was it. Hopefully it was a little bit longer class, I know it.
Yes, sir. It was
So
nice, sir.
it was fine. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So today too, I request you that the last session, I wanted to get the recording,
Oh,
and
sure.
so that
Log
rest
in.
of the internet community know that how I teach and what way I take my classes, right?
Sure. Sure.
Just by looking at one video, people may not be able to understand everything, but coming to one-to-one classes can help them.
Mm.
So yeah.